a student, who is Ernest.
Hello.
And an advisor, who is me. And every time we stick our mic back, Jacob is going to fill in the blank. So if I said, I forgot my
College board password.
college board password. And we're going to do a scene. So what's something that you talk about with your students every single day? College board?
Financial aid.
College board? Okay. All right, we're going to do college board. All right, you want to start it?
I'm ready.
All right.
Miss Anderson.
Yeah?
So I tried to get in my SAT account and what's the thing called?
FAFSA.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, College Board is not for your FAFSA,
FAFSA.
despite popular confusion. But it's okay. You're actually on there to check your SAT scores. Do you know how to access that? I know last time you said...
My TSI scores.
TS. What is this TS?
The secret information score. That's how much top secret government information you know. You take it in your computer class junior year.
I'm confused.
I'm confused.
Well, don't worry about that. I don't think you're going to go to the FBI. You take a bunch of art classes. So what I'm thinking for you is that we're going to need to call College Board and let them know that...
You need your password reset.
Okay, so when I called College Board last time, and I tried to get in my account last time, and I signed up, I actually, I missed the test date because
I was trying to order pizza.
I was ordering pizza at 7:45 in the morning.
That sounds about right. I've seen you do that. Pizza for each hour, right? Grandpa's got money. So here's the thing, is College Board is one of those things where when you call, you have to be really patient because...
They're run by gerbils.
And, all right, give it up for Jacob and give it up for Alina. Thank you so much.
I was like, where is this going?
That was good, Jacob. I didn't see that coming. Oh, my God.
Thank you guys for that. That was really fun for us. I hope you enjoyed it. So while we get the gerbils back on track, we're going to play you guys another recap video from yesterday. Sound good? Getting ready for that Best Dressed Award from your MCs. Let's see who we got to recruit for it.
Yes!
Oh, wow. I am wearing Ross, and Tarjay.
So I'm wearing a cheetah grandpa sweater.
It's actually from JCPenney. Ball on a budget. Not to spend a lot.
Thank you, guys. We've been having a really, really good time with you, and we hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. I know today looks like a very long day, but this program is amazing, and they've planned some super fun stuff for you to keep you entertained and engaged, so I hope you have an awesome, awesome day. Today, I'm going to be welcoming some advisors to introduce our keynote speaker. Can you please come to the stage, Nicole Ramos and Marvin Backlig?
Thank you all. We are so incredibly honored to be introducing Jose Antonio Vargas, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Emmy-nominated filmmaker, and theatrical producer. Hi everyone, my name is Marvin Backlig, and I'm a 2.5-year college advisor for UC Berkeley's Destination College Advising Corps. And my school site is Oakland Technical High School. Like myself, our keynote speaker immigrated from the Philippines to the United States in California when he was younger. He is a proud product of the San Francisco Bay Area, where he attended Mountain View High School and San Francisco State University.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole Ramos, and I'm a third-year advisor with NYU CAC. Shout out in the back. And I'm serving at International High School at Union Square, which is a small public high school in Manhattan. As a daughter of immigrants, immigration has been an important topic to myself and my family growing up. And it feels very full circle that now with CAC, I'm able to serve at a public high school that is just for recently arrived immigrants. My students come from over 50 different countries and speak over 20 different languages, and immigration is a topic that has and continues to be present at the forefront of their lives.
A leading voice for the human rights of immigrants, he founded the nonprofit media and culture organization Define America. Named one of the world's most innovative companies by Fast Company, his best-selling memoir, Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen, was published by HarperCollins in 2018. Most recently, he co-produced Heidi Schreck's acclaimed play, What the Constitution Means to Me, which opened on Broadway in spring 2019.
He is most well known for publishing a groundbreaking article in the New York Times Magazine, in which he wrote and in which he revealed and chronicled his life in America as an undocumented immigrant. A year later, he appeared on the cover of Time Magazine worldwide with fellow undocumented immigrants as a follow-up cover-up story he wrote. He then produced and directed Documented, an original autobiographical documentary feature film that aired on CNN and received a 2015 NCAA-NCP Imagine Award nomination for Outstanding Documentary. Also in 2015, MTV aired White People, an Emmy-nominated television special he produced and directed on what it means to be young and white in a demographically changing America.
Among accolades he has received are the Freedom to Write Award from Penn Center USA and an honorary degree from Colby College and the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Passionate about the role of arts in society and promoting equity in education, he serves on the advisory board of the Dream.US, a scholarship fund for undocumented immigrant students.
But aside from everything that he's done, he is very passionate and very excited to talk to all of us and to really host a conversation about what it means to be advisors in this time and to serve students who are affected by this issue on a daily basis.
Please give a round of applause for our keynote speaker, Jose Antonio Vargas.
You guys are really awake. Can everybody please give Marvin and Nicole a round of applause again? Yes. I'm a little intimidated because this is really early. For all the Cali people, it's really only 6 o'clock California time, but you're really hella awake. I'm from California, so hella. So I'm gonna talk for like 25 minutes or so. I'm just gonna kind of run through what I do and what immigration means right now. And then what I really wanna have is a conversation amongst all of you. Especially considering that when we talk about immigration, it's not this abstract, partisan Washington, D.C. thing. It's actually in your classrooms and in the places that you work and that you serve and that you're a part of. So I've been going around the country asking this question, how do you define American? I asked it so many times, I just figured just wear the t-shirt. For the past 8 years, I've been traveling all across the country. I've done about 1,700 events in 49 states, every state but Alaska, talking to everybody of all races, ages, and backgrounds, even to Trump voters. Most recently, I just did something in Idaho. I met with the Dairymen's Association of Idaho, who are trying to deal with the fact that 85% of the workers in the dairy farm industry in the state of Idaho are undocumented. And all of the Dairymen's Association members are Republicans. So that's what I do all across the country asking this question. So do laws define what an American is? Like the DREAM Act, right? I was a dreamer before there was a DREAM Act. I think the DREAM Act was introduced in 2001. I graduated high school in 2000. Immigration reform. I don't really know what comprehensive immigration reform is. Everybody talks about it, but I don't know what it is. Do pieces of papers. How many of you have green cards? How many of you have passports? Can you raise your hand? That's a lot. Okay, so does having a passport define what an American is? I don't know, have you ever seen a green card? No, can you see that? It's not even green. So as some of you, as Marvin pointed out, I was born in the Philippines. When I was 12, my mother woke me up and she said I was going to America. She gave me a suitcase and said that it might get cold there, so she gave me a jacket. That was the last time I saw her. That was in 1993. She sent me to live with her parents, my grandparents, in Mountain View, California, where Google is. I got there before Google got there. And I didn't think anything was wrong with this green card. You know, apparently it's my piece of ID to come to this country. But I never really needed it until I went to get a driver's license when I was 16. I think all my friends started getting tired driving me around. So they're like, hey, you should get a driver's permit. So I went to the DMV without telling my grandparents, who are both naturalized US citizens, that I was gonna go. I brought the green card and my high school ID. And I was listening to my Walkman. Do you know what that is? I was listening to Alanis Morissette and Boyz II Men. So I didn't think anything was gonna be wrong, so I went to the booth of the DMV, I gave the woman my green card and my school ID, I was playing You Oughta Know on the Walkman, and then the woman at the DMV said, this is fake, and then she said, don't come back here again. The first thing that came to my mind was, I am not Mexican. Isn't that awful? This was in 1997. We have made this issue all about Mexican that even way back in 1997, my first instinct when this woman told me that the green card was fake, that wait a second, I am not one of those people. Right? And I wanted to tell her, hey, I'm Filipino, you know, we have Spanish names. It's called Spanish colonialism, right? But I just figured she was lying and she didn't know what she was talking about. So I went home, I got home, my grandfather was a security guard. He worked the graveyard shift during the night. And so I confronted him. I said, hey, Lolo, that's grandfather in Tagalog. The woman said this was fake. My grandfather looked at me and he said, what are you doing showing that to people? I guess I wasn't supposed to show it to anybody. He never said anything about that. And then he said, you're not supposed to be here. So that's how I found out that I was here illegally. This was in 1997. So there was no Google, there was no Twitter. I couldn't just put undocumented. That wasn't even a phrase, right? And I guess the plan was my grandfather couldn't legally petition me to come to this country because grandparents are not allowed to petition grandkids. It's not a close enough of a relationship. And then my mother couldn't come because she was already married, and my grandfather could only petition my mother if she was unmarried. Doesn't that tell you a lot about immigration and how complicated it is? And so their plan was to smuggle me here, to pay $4,500 for this green card, which is a lot of money for a security guard who was making $7 an hour. And then I suppose their plan was I was supposed to go through high school, then graduate, and then work at the flea market in San Jose on Berryessa Road as an undocumented janitor. And then I was supposed to find a woman who's a US citizen, and poof, I'd marry, like, Sandra Bullock in The Proposal, right? So then I told my grandfather, I'm not doing that, I'm gay. Because, one lie was enough, right? So I was like, wait a second. So now you brought me here on a lie, and now you want me to lie once more to marry a woman to get papers? So I told him that I wasn't going to do that. What I did know was that I was this illegal person who was also a faggot. I mean, that's what my classmates said about gay people. And then whenever I read the news or listened to the radio or read the newspaper, illegal, 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 illegal. That's what everybody said. My salvation came in two forms. The first form was this woman named Toni Morrison. Oh, yay. You know who Toni Morrison is. Awesome. Of course you do. What am I talking about? In 8th grade, I was assigned to read this book called The Bluest Eye. I was really confused by this book. I'm from the Philippines. I didn't know Whitney Houston was black until I got to America. In the Philippines, she was just American, right? And so when I was a kid coming to California, I was always confused as to where an Asian-looking guy with a Latino name fit in an America that was about black and white. That was very confusing to me. But this book was fascinating. It was about this young black girl who wanted to have blue eyes. But more importantly than even just the issue was the way the book was written. It was just in this really kind of poetic, magical way that made me kept turning the page. I was so obsessed by this book, I actually went to the public library and I went to this thing called Microfiche. Do you know what that is? It's like Google before there was Google. It's like this big machine that you like search stuff in. And I put Toni Morrison Bluest Eye in the machine, and I found out that Toni Morrison wrote this book because she had a young girl, a friend in elementary school, who told her that she didn't believe in God. Why not? The young friend said, well, I asked God for blue eyes and he didn't give it to me, so therefore he doesn't exist. And then Toni Morrison, as a young kid, was thinking, wait, why would this young black girl want blue eyes? Who told her that blue eyes was better? Why did she believe it? I was so obsessed with this book that I even found this transcript. There's a show on PBS. I didn't really know what PBS was. There was this interviewer, Bill Moyers, who did this interview with Toni Morrison, and this was the interview. Bill Moyers in the interview says, I don't think I've ever met a more pathetic creature in contemporary literature than Pecola Breedlove. Morrison says, she surrendered completely to the so-called master narrative. Bill Moyers says, to what? Morrison says, the master narrative. Bill Moyers goes, what is that? Is that life? Toni Morrison says, no. It's white male life. Then Toni Morrison says, the master narrative is whatever ideological script that is being imposed by the people in authority on everybody else, the master fiction. History. It has a certain point of view. So when these little girls see that the most prized gift that they get at Christmas time is this little white doll, that's the master narrative speaking, this is beautiful, this is lovely, you're not it. She's so needful, so completely needful, has so little, needs so much. She becomes, Toni Morrison says, the perfect victim. I remember watching this interview and then reading this transcript and deciding right then and there that I wasn't going to be the perfect victim. In my mind, illegal and victim were kind of the same. I convinced myself that someone, somewhere, somehow created the master narrative of illegality. Human beings serving Americans, either by babysitting their kids or trimming their lawns or constructing their houses or harvesting their crops. The images and visuals perpetuated by the news media, corroborated on TV shows and movies, human beings being told what they cannot do and where they cannot go. You gotta love America. Perhaps only in America can someone like Toni Morrison arguably one of the greatest, if not the greatest writer in the English language, an African-American woman whose grandfather lived in a time when it was illegal for African-Americans to read, to liberate a gay undocumented Filipino. But that's exactly what she did. And as an undocumented gay Filipino immigrant who graduated from San Francisco State University with degrees in political science and African American studies, and who produced and directed an hour-long MTV special called White People, my task, as I see it, is to help rewrite the master narrative of immigration. And I am accomplishing that task as much as I can, one story at a time, starting with my own. Isn't that the most horrible photo you've ever seen? So against the advice of 27 immigration lawyers, I decided to take the biggest risks of my life and come out for the second time, I'm done coming out, and tell my story as an undocumented immigrant in the New York Times. That was in 2011. I think some of you were like in high school, maybe middle school. And on the day the story was published, I asked 3 friends of mine to actually start an organization with me called Define American. It's a nonprofit media organization that uses the power of stories to shift people's understanding of immigration and immigrants. We use stories to change the culture in which we discuss immigration as an issue and immigrants as people. The reality is mine is only one story. We need more stories. And our aim is to use media, all forms of media, to change the narrative on immigration and immigrants. We use media because media is the most powerful messaging entity in the world, changing perceptions and shaping politics that lead to policies. We use media because we are the stories we tell. Let me repeat this. We are the stories we tell. And for the most part, the stories we've been watching, reading, and listening to have been hurtful, incomplete, inaccurate, and irresponsible when it comes to immigrants. Let me kind of boil this down for you. The difference between story and narrative. For decades now, the stories the media tells about people like me have altogether created an anti-immigrant narrative that's akin to a metastasizing virus, spreading so widely and so acutely that it actually elected a president. So how do you fight that? Stories. Our politics are so divisive, so partisan, that only stories can allow for complexity and nuance. More than ever, we need complexity and nuance. At Define American, we work with writers, producers, and directors in Hollywood. So far, we've consulted 64 TV and film projects, working with people on shows like Grey's Anatomy, Roswell, and Superstore. Have you seen the show called Superstore? It's on NBC? A few years ago, we heard that they were going to introduce an undocumented gay Filipino character. The producer said they were inspired by my story. I'm like, oh, thank you, that's so sweet. And then they told us, oh yeah, we're going to introduce this character, Mateo, on the first episode of the new season, and then we'll make him legal by the 4th episode. And we're like, how are you going to go do that? So even well-meaning writers in Hollywood had no idea that you couldn't just make somebody legal, that there was no process to do that with. So now for the past 3 seasons, Define American has been working with Superstore on actually creating and actually informing this character, which is now the only recurring character on primetime TV that is undocumented. We also work with journalists. We monitor how immigration is covered, and we publish reports that influence news coverage. When news organizations, for example, use language, how do they use the language? I'm sad to report that to this day, in 2019, the New York Times, the so-called newspaper of record, still use illegal when referring to people like me. Now, let me be clear and precise about this. I am here illegally without authorization from the government. When I board a flight at Logan this afternoon to go back to San Francisco, I can get arrested and detained at the airport when the TSA checks my papers, my driver's license. Now that can happen, I'm prepared, I have lawyers. But I, as a person, am not illegal because people cannot be illegal. I think that's a pretty clear distinction. But what exactly is an anchor baby? That term has become so prevalent. When news organizations use chain migration in reporting about the refugees and migrants coming from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, should they also note the chain migration of the Irish, Italians, Germans, and Eastern Europeans who followed their relatives to America during the Ellis Island era before anybody asked for papers, for visas and green cards? So at Define American, we also know that every significant social movement in this country have started with young people, with students. So we have a growing chapters program, mostly in colleges and some in high schools. We have 68 Define American chapters in 25 states. If you look at that map, what I love about the chapters is we're not only in the coast, not only New York, not only in California. Our fastest growing chapters are in Nebraska and in Iowa and in Texas. We are in places that we need to be. And our chapters use our storytelling strategies to change the culture of how immigration and immigrants are viewed in their local communities. How do we engage people who don't think immigration is about them? I remember I was doing an event in Colorado a few years ago, and this young woman, after my event, came up to me and said, "Can I start a Define American chapter even though I'm white?" So then I remember asking her, "Well, where are you from?" And she said, "Well, I'm white." Well, white is not a country. And she said, "Oh, I'm Irish." "Oh, okay. Do you know what happened to the Irish after they left Ireland after the potato famine? When people got in all those ships, so many people died, they actually called them coffin ships. Did you know that in the 1850s, there were actually newspaper ads all across the country that actually said, 'No Irish need apply'?" So how did those Irish, Italian, Polish, German, Swedish people, how do they happen to get all white? Are they expecting that Asians and Latinx people will become white too? Well, some people try, but it can't work that way. Now, we like to say this. We like to say that we're a country of immigrants. But what we also must say is that we are a country founded on the plunder and genocide of Native and Indigenous peoples, built on the labor of imported and enslaved Africans. This is the 400th year of American slavery, and constantly replenished by new generation of immigrants who from the very beginning have tried to keep other immigrants out. To me, one of the toughest realities that we all have to deal with, that I'm sure you and your schools and your communities are dealing with, is the fact that we as a country have never told our full story. And we are living through the consequences of that dishonesty, right? We must insist on telling America's whole story. We must also engage people who don't agree with us, even if they don't even know what the issue really is about. Traveling all across the country, talking to all kinds of people, have led me to conclude that immigration is the most discussed yet least understood issue in America. Even people who think are on our side, like the writers on a show called Superstore, progressives and liberals, have no idea how the immigration process works or doesn't work. Almost every day I get two questions. Why haven't they deported you? I have no idea. I really don't know. You have to ask the government. And then they ask me, why don't you just get legal? Fix this thing. Bill Maher asked me that once. I was on a show, and we went on a commercial break, and Bill Maher turned to me and says, "You can't just go fix this thing?" And I'm looking at him going, this is Bill Maher. If Bill Maher doesn't know that I can't just go fix this thing, how was Bill O'Reilly gonna know? When he used to have a show. He doesn't have one anymore, right? The reality is, this is a really, really important map. This is actually a PDF that you can download on our website, defineamerican.com. It's the holiday season. You're gonna be with relatives. They're gonna say stuff, right? And when they say that these people can't just fix it, this is actually something you can download, print, and give to them. Immigration is not one size fits all. For decades now, immigration has been a bipartisan mess. Because of what President Clinton signed into law back in 1997, I can't leave the country. If I leave the country, they won't let me back in. There's no guarantee. It's called a 10-year bar. Because of the detention system that President Bush started and President Obama continued, we have the tragedy that is now President Trump's immigration policy. And educating the general public is where we need everybody's help, where we need your help. More than ever, we need to build bridges. We need to engage people outside of our own spheres. We need to engage in more uncomfortable conversations. So when I think about this, I may not have a green card, I may not have a passport, but education has been my passport. It's been my green card. It's been my freedom. And that very freedom, we all know, is under attack. So, DACA. If the Supreme Court sides with the Trump administration in ending DACA, what will you do? What will happen in our own communities? I'm not sure, by the way, that allyship is going to be enough. I think we're going to need co-conspirators, right? To me, your role as advisors is to serve as bridges, to not just offer hope, but to be a symbol of hope. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that this has been a very hard few months. I personally am friends with and mentor many documented people, many students, and their mental health is at the top of my concern. I would argue that we have a mental health crisis in immigrant communities across this country. Mentorship is sacred to me, and I'm trying to be as good a mentor to them as educators and advisors have been good mentors to me. And on that note, I kind of wanted to share something. I've been prepared for everything. I have to be. I have lawyers. I have 7. I don't make a move without them. I can be detained at any point. I've been detained once, but they released me. I don't know why. Deportation, we'll see what happens. But one thing I was not prepared for was this. 2 years ago, the school district that I attended as a kid called me and said, hey, we're thinking of naming an elementary school after you. I said, wait a second, I'm not dead yet. Shouldn't somebody try to kill me first before you do this? And then he said, oh, we're considering other names, like Steve Jobs, because he went to the same school district as I did, and Barack and Michelle Obama Elementary School. So I figured, oh, this is so cute. They just included my name, but I'm not gonna win, you know? Like, of course Barack and Michelle Obama was gonna get the votes. To my surprise, when they voted, I ended up winning. You gotta love America though, right? I can't legally become an American, and yet they can legally name a school after me. A public school. The students, the elementary school students voted for the mascot. I was kind of hoping for, like, you know, I don't know, panther, eagle, owl. They voted for owl. I think they looked at my eyebrows and they're like, owl. And so then when this happened, they had to do this dedication of the school. And what I wanted to share with you is that, I don't know if you can see all those people there. Every single mentor and every single advisor I've ever had, from the ESL teacher in 6th grade, Mrs. Mitchell, who taught me how to speak, quote unquote, American, to Mrs. Fitzgerald, my math teacher, to Mrs. Doer, my journalism instructor, to Mrs. Fuqua, the African-American teacher who taught me the house on Mango Street, to every single person who never needed papers or laws to treat me as a human being, they were all there. And when I talk about defining American, I define American as community. The community of people who never needed pieces of papers or laws to treat people like me like human being. And I would argue that right now, if freedom can't come from the government, federal, state, or local, then it has to come from people. Meaning the very freedom of immigrants and undocumented students in your campuses, at your communities, depend on you. Toni Morrison, my favorite writer, she likes to say that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else. this question of defining American is not abstract to me. It's very personal. And I would argue that it's really also personal to you. Lastly, before I take questions, how many of you are US citizens? Can you raise your hand? I really hope you don't take it for granted. I hope you remember that there are millions of people who are fighting for something that you have, that you may just happen to be born with. Thank you for having me here. Oh, sit down. No. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, thanks. Sit. I made it. It was 25 minutes, right? Okay, good. Yay. Okay. I was getting nervous there. Okay, questions. So you're going to make me nervous if you don't ask questions. And you can ask me any question you want. Are there mics somewhere? Okay, cool. And then can you say your name and like what school you're at? That'd be great.
Good morning. Thank you for speaking. My name is Fatima. I'm with UC Berkeley.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of Berkeley people here. Okay.
So I think my main question is, how do you avoid the good versus bad immigrant narrative, especially with like the work that we do and getting students ready to apply to college and stuff? Just because we have this image of like the golden immigrant who we want here and who we propel to be in this space.
Can you repeat that second part? The students in what, private what?
How we're motivating them to go to college and apply to different colleges, and we have this image of like the golden immigrant and who we're like propelling to apply to certain institutions. Thank you.
Oh no, oh please stay, just in case. By the way, I live in Berkeley now, so yay! The land of kale. People actually fight over kale. And I'm Filipino, so we have no kale on Filipino food, so I'm very confused by all of this. So, I'm so glad you asked that question. Because I look like this, 8 years ago when I started doing this work, I actually think people started projecting onto me that I'm some sort of model minority good immigrant thing. And on behalf of all the API Asian people in this room, can you please stop, all of you, on trying to project this good immigrant model minority myth that Asian people, I think, are burdened with? It's been for me in the beginning, especially because when I came out, people just saw like the success part of it, and I had to tell people my GPA was actually like 3.2, and I went to San Francisco State University. And I went there because I didn't take the SATs, and it was the only college that didn't require SAT scores. So from the very beginning, people were assuming that because I was successful, I was some sort of a good immigrant. When in reality, when I came out, what I was really highlighting was that I was a mess. And I'm still a mess. It's really hard because I think issues of not only race and class play into this, right? I can't tell you how many times I would get an email from somebody who's asking for scholarship help because they want to go to a really expensive 4-year private college. I will not name the colleges. And then usually I'd respond and I say, what's wrong with a community college where I send my nieces and nephews, right? What's wrong with the state schools? This idea of assimilating to America, whatever that means, are we actually carefully interrogating what that is? How do we make sure that when we fight for DACA, because I think we do have to fight for DACA, how do we not forget the people who don't qualify for DACA, right? So I think a lot of this for me is nuance and complexity. And a lot of it is making sure that we look at people as people, and then we realize that they're a part of a system that they don't control. Does that make sense? Like there's systems and then there's people, right? So then how do we fight systems while making sure that we survive systems that we didn't create? So for me, to your question, it's just being really, really aware of it, to the point sometimes where I'm probably over-apologetic about it. Do you have a follow-up? No? Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Hi.
Hi, my name's Victoria. I'm a hybrid advisor with Hatch. I'm located in Texas.
Oh, we're in Texas.
So I'm originally from the Rio Grande Valley.
That's where I got arrested. It's okay. There's only one place in America I can't go back to. That's it. Yeah, it's okay. It's all right.
My question is, what do you tell students who they have to provide for their family because maybe dad is not around and has been gone for whatever reason the case may be, but that want to go to college and are striving for a better life, but they also have responsibilities to take care of their own?
So I've been financially providing for my mom since I was 23, right? So just because that's what we do. You know, remittances, right? So every month I send her an allowance. I actually think that is the cycle of like remittance, dependence culture that immigrants like us don't like talking about. It's like we sweep it under the rug. So while I was trying to figure out my career, I've had to support my mom. When I was young, I was really resentful of that. To the point where I actually thought, wait a second, did I get sent here so there's an allowance that gets sent to her every month? Which was a really painful conversation to have with her when I was older. Then I started realizing when I got older that it's actually part of what the sacrifice was that she started, right? And that in many ways is part of a deal that I did not sign up for, but that I am now a part of. So that resentment actually became gratitude. I'm saying that because I think that's important to acknowledge, right? That it's hard. It's hard when we come to this country, we don't come by ourselves, even if we came by ourselves. Like, we are always a part of what we left, right? To this day, you know, I have a sister. When I left, wait a second, she was almost 2, so she's 28 now. I have a brother I've never met. She's a half brother, but I don't consider, you know, he's my brother. But he only knows me as the guy who sends the iPhones every year, right? And the basketball jerseys that he wants. So there was a time when our relationship was purely consumeristic. I just gave them stuff. So then it took a while for me to actually explain that, look, like, these things are more than just things, like, you know. So what I'm trying to get at here is I think we have to acknowledge that it's a difficult position to be in, but to remember that when we come to this country, we come with our families, and that's part of what we come with. However, I think it's really important to set boundaries. So I told my sister, oh my God, I can't believe I'm telling all of you this, but okay. I told my sister when she graduated from college, I sent her to college. I said, Ning, that's her name, Ning. Ning, I'm not gonna take care of you for the rest of your life. You need to get a job, okay? But I'm gonna help if you wanna buy a car, you know, if you want a special birthday gift, but I don't want you to be dependent on me. I want you to have your own life and to take care of yourself, because in that you'll find integrity, right? I know she didn't want to hear that 5 years ago, but now she's self-sufficient and supporting herself, and now she understands why I said what I said. So I think it was important for me to draw that boundary. I hope that's helpful. I can't believe I just said that to all of you, but okay. Hey, what's up?
Hi, good morning. My name is Jose Heredia. I'm from the U Chicago Corps, and I serve at Kelly High School in Chicago, Illinois.
Cool.
And my school is predominantly Latino with Asian population as well, because we serve students from our Chinatown. One of the issues that I think is hardest for me as an advisor is kind of deconstructing the narrative that immigrants are just from one background or whatnot, that this issue of undocumented impacts people from all different nationalities, ethnicities. And for me, finding resources for students who aren't typically associated with like the traditional narrative, it's been difficult for me connecting with some of those students as well, because my school receives a lot of students who arrive for just like the last 2 years of high school. So what are some ways that we can work to kind of deconstruct that narrative that are positive and that and to help those students who are, they don't have opportunities like DACA and things like that?
I would just say that these are one of the things that I'm really proud about what we do at Define American. If you go to our website right now, we have like an entire splash page on DACA, and the person and the student we have is an undocumented Black immigrant from the Caribbean, right? For us, we have been very, very intentional in making sure that we're being really representative of what the issue is. We had like this private breakfast before this, and I was telling the young advisors I was with that there are 66 million Latinx people in this country, 33 million of whom are Mexican. I actually think we owe 66 million Latinx people an apology for having racialized this issue as much as we have, right? I wish I had the words to explain to you. I always knew that there was a big anti-Latino, Latina kind of narrative in the country. I didn't really realize it until I started traveling all across the country, where people would literally use the terms Mexican and illegal interchangeably, right? I remember when I was in Alabama once, this young woman, Mexican-American woman, ran towards me and she said, "I am so happy you're not Mexican." Because she wanted to tell people that it wasn't only Mexican people, that it was also Asian people, Black people, Middle Eastern people. So expanding that narrative is absolutely important. I wish, we talk a lot about intersectionality, right? That comes up a lot. Putting it into action is really tough. If there's one thing that comes out of this conversation, I sincerely hope when you go back to your communities that how do we get Latinx, API, and Black communities and white communities together to talk about this issue? Like, what does that look like? And when it comes to inclusion, a lot of that has to do with the policies that whatever school or whatever jurisdiction actually supports. Like, I was just at a school, a community college in Southern California, and they actually decided that when it comes to the documented student that they have at the school, they were gonna create actual support networks, not only within the groups, within all the Latinx students and all the API students, that we were gonna do a cross-section of all of them, right? So that the struggles of the undocumented Asian students can be heard by the struggles of the undocumented Latinx students. I thought that was really powerful. And I actually think those are the kind of programs that we need to model more of, right? Because in the very specificity of our stories, we find universality. And I think using our identities as bridges and not as, if I were to say to you, unless you're an undocumented gay Filipino, you can't understand where I'm coming from. You're human. We're human. You don't have to be undocumented gay Filipino to know, right, that we actually share the same struggle. And so to me, that's part of what I hope happens more of. Thank you. 5 minutes left. Okay. Hi.
Ooh, can you hear me? Oh,
Yes.
great. Thank you for sharing your story, first of all. I'm Joanne. I'm an alumna of CACBU. And my question for you is, what motivates you to do this every day? The reason why I ask is because I served at a school.
You what?
I served at a school that closed down.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Does somebody give her tissue? Okay, okay. It's okay. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I didn't see you crying.
Oh, okay. Yes, I am awkward. I couldn't see you. Okay, we're gonna talk right here. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all right. You're gonna make me cry. It's okay. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, the question was, what motivates you to do this every day? I served 2 years at a school that recently closed down and have a student who is undocumented She was so strong. She's so resilient. She's awesome. She comes from a beautiful country called Cape Verde. And she went through the process, but realized at the end that she has to work full-time at a restaurant to pay for community college. So she still hasn't been able to go yet because she doesn't have the funds. So she lost a lot of motivation along the way. So that's why I wanted to ask you, what motivates you every day to do this? And your team of 7 words, that's awesome.
Wait. You want water? Okay. Okay, so I'm 38. I'm Asian, so we age well. Sorry, I have to make a joke. I have to make a joke. I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you how I have to fight depression. And I'm what some people would say, hella privileged, right? And yet, there are reminders every day of all the limitations I have, right? But if I focus on all those limitations, then I wouldn't get out of bed. So I have to focus on the fact that in many ways, the most American thing about me is the same spirit of resilience that runs across every group of people who've had to fight to be in this country. May that be Frederick Douglass. May that be Fred Korematsu. May that be all those Chinese people who built those railroads back in the 1850s and we didn't let them become citizens, right? So for me, when I think about what keeps me going is I think that we are actually writing history as we live it. That this country is daring us to actually live up to what it says it is. And that fight, to me, is what makes us American. And thank you for caring the way that you do.
Sorry for crying.
No, it's okay. It's okay. All right. Okay. But thank you. Should we take more questions? There's 2 more. Okay. Okay, great. 2 more questions. No crying. I'm just kidding. Joanna, I'm kidding. Okay, yes. Hi.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. My name is Candace Spates, and I serve with the University of Georgia Court. I serve at 2 high schools, one all-men gender STEM school, and one all-female gender STEM school in Atlanta, Georgia, specifically Bankhead. Predominantly, my student body is Black, and with a small portion of Latinx students. I am thinking of one student in mind who sets the bar extremely high test scores, high rigor, always has a smile on her face, and we have our on and off one-on-ones. One day she'll come in my office, excited, has big plans for 4-year university. The next time we come back, it'll be 2 or 3 weeks since I've seen her. She's lost all hope. After having a conversation from her, I've learned that her parents are here, undocumented, illegally, and for that reason, she is feared. She has full fear that if she leaves to go pursue her dreams that her parents push her to, during that process, she might lose them. And she's the oldest, and she has 5 younger siblings. And though she has that portion of taking care of them now, she is in complete fear that if that be the case, and she does have to provide for them, she will not live up to the standards. So how do I, as well as I guess other advisors who might have students in that same situation, help to take away that fear, knowing that, again, it is a 50-50 chance that something like this can happen, but still encouraging them to pursue their dreams that they worked so hard for?
Let me just say this. When I was in high school, from 1996 to 2000, there was no language for this. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that I'm standing in a room full of advisors who are actually ready to listen to students when they bring up something like this. Let's just acknowledge that, right? I'm saying that because I think the listening part of it is already helpful, right? I have to tell you, by the way, my lawyers are like, do not go to the state of Georgia. I was supposed to do an event in Atlanta, and my lawyers are like, Jose, if you get arrested in Georgia, the immigration judges are the toughest. They'll keep you locked up there for as long as they want. So I haven't gone. I probably will this year because, you know. So it's tough. So for her to be able to tell you this, right, and for you to be able to listen is already part of it. The second important thing to me are options, right? So I was just talking to Nicole, and hopefully after today, I would love to figure out how we can all partner up even more. So I am on the advisory boards or serve on many of the undocumented scholarship programs that are out there that actually now provide more options for undocumented students, especially in states that are what we call locked out states like Georgia, right? So there's a group called the Dream.us Scholarship, which I would love to tell you more about, right? But that's the kind of thing that if you were to give to her, so now these are options that may actually alleviate some stress, right? That maybe you can stay in the Atlanta area, right, and pursue your education. The other thing that I think is important is realizing that at the end of the day, you're giving people options, but the choice is up to them to give people agency, right? Every day, probably the most number of messages I get are from undocumented people who ask me, hey, Jose, how are you flying? Should I fly? And usually my response is, do you have a lawyer? Because it is a risk to fly, right? But guess what? I have decided that I will not stop this. I will not allow this government to scare me from my own country. Right? So I fly. And when I get arrested, there's 4 million Filipinos in this country. Many of them nurses. Just kidding. So I'm prepared for whatever that is, right? And so giving people options, but at the same time making sure that they have agency to make the choice that they have to make, to me, that's what freedom is. And you, by just listening, is a part of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
One last question. Yes. Hi.
Hello. Oh. I'm Candace Soto. I work for TCU CAC and
where is that?
Texas.
Fort
Worth,
the great
Texas,
state
yeah.
of Texas.
Yeah.
By the way,
Sorry about that.
1.8 million undocumented people in Texas, and you don't let us legally drive. Is there a subway system in Texas I don't know about?
No.
So can all the people, can y'all work on that? Driver's licenses for people in Texas? That would be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your question?
Okay. So my question is I have a student who is also undocumented, and when I spoke to him, he was really struggling with the idea that that he was better off going to his native country because there will be more opportunity for him, and having that conversation about how he wants to go to college, he wants to become like an engineer, and so it's hard.
What did you say when he said this?
Oh, I was lost for words. Basically, the conversation went down like this. I was like, because he understands, like he's just realistic with the idea that he's not going to have a lot of, he believes he's not going to have a lot of opportunity here as far as getting jobs that are in engineering. And so he feels like just going to college where he was from would be a lot easier and just kind of, going that route rather than going to college here or specifically in Texas.
I'm so glad you asked me this question. So I'm up to 14. I have talked to 14 DACA recipients who have decided to leave since Trump was elected president. They usually contact me because they feel really guilty. Like, how can I leave if, Jose, you're staying? So that always kind of catches me. And I have to say that the freedom of movement, migration as a human right, it doesn't only mean the freedom of staying here, it also means the freedom of leaving. So when these students contact me and, you know, I tell them, the last one went to the UK, and I said to her, you went to school in America.
Yeah.
You carry America with you. That doesn't just go away, right? So I wrote this book, and many colleges are assigning it for like a common read or something, call it like freshman read. The first school was Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge.
Yes.
They bought like 3,000 copies, so my publisher was like, go. So I went. I did this event, it was a convocation, it was a big event. And Duncan, this student, got up and said, hey, in the book, Jose, you said that your mom doesn't regret sending you here. Because my mom said, how can I regret it? Look at you now. I haven't seen her for 26 years. Again, I can't leave. She's been waiting in line to come here legally for 19 years now. She can't come on a tourist visa because she doesn't own property. She's not a college graduate. Right? So this young man asked me, hey, Mr. Vargas, do you regret being sent here? No one has ever asked me that question before. And I said to him, yes. I would have actually preferred to have a mom. And when I said it, I started thinking that the freedom of movement also means freedom of staying, that no parent should have to make that choice, right? That is what migration as a human right really looks like. And that is a conversation, the complexity of that conversation is one I think that we must have. God, I feel like I just throw a lot at you.
It's okay.
And I have to tell you though, these conversations we're having right now, it's not on CNN, it's not on MSNBC, certainly not on Fox News. You know where it's gonna happen? It's gonna happen at your schools. And one last thing before I go. First thing is to say thank you. The second thing is to say, please be kind to yourself. And don't beat yourself up too much. We're all trying our best, right? And if you don't know the answer, you don't know the answer and you'll figure it out, right? But mostly, thank you. Thank you for being willing to have this conversation.
Right. Thank you.
Jose, yesterday I shared with everybody that one of my hopes for the 3 days we're together and then going forward is that we would see each other, hear each other, value each other, and frankly be brave enough to tell our stories. And that we build, that these are architects of a new system and that we fight this current system, but we do it with love. And you radiate a light and love that motivates me. And I'm so honored to call you friend and ally and a fellow American. Thank you, Jose, for your light. Everybody. I really don't care what the government thinks you are. You're extraordinary, and you motivate us all. I'm going to switch real quickly and bring a couple alums up. Jose's actually going to stay with us, so if you did have questions for him, he's being very generous with his time, and he's going to stay because he's family. So thank you for being part of our family and staying. Can I get my lovely CAC alumni panel to come on up?
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. And I say, it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright. Little darling, this night's returning to the places.
All right, please don't leave. We're not at break yet. We've got amazing people for you to hear. All right. All right, please don't leave. We have fellow CAC family up here that we want you to hear from. And I promise we'll have a break after this. So we want to spend just a little bit of time. Today, our theme is life after the core, right? So our theme for Summit this year is igniting your potential. Today is all about you because we want to lean into what comes next for you, right? I said yesterday, if we do this right, the access piece of our work is propelling our high school students forward. The inclusion piece is actually creating this diverse, amazing, talented pool that is you and propelling you forward so that you do become architects of a new system. You do become the people that lead and push forward in ways that we need you to lead and push forward. So I've asked 4 of our amazing alums to come join us because I know you're all stressed about what's next. And you probably want to hear from people who have done the transition from CAC to life after the core. So I will have them introduce themselves. There are still mics, so you're also going to be able to ask some questions. But please welcome our CAC alums. So, Tony, you want to go first?
Hi, all. Tony Stripling. I'm a TCU chapter alum, 2000. Go Frogs. 2014 to 2016, and I was also in the inaugural Data and Policy Fellowship for all of you fellows out there. After the core, I worked for Catholic Charities Fort Worth as a research project manager, helping to design innovative services. And now I've transitioned into management consulting with LEK Consulting.
I'm Selena Artusi. I was the University of Texas at Austin chapter. There they are. In 2013, 2014, and then I moved to Washington, D.C. to work in higher education administration, and then went to Stanford University for grad school, and California got its hook on me, and I haven't left. So I work in California at a foundation.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ian Pelton. I was a NYU CAC chapter. I was there from 2016 to 2018, and I now work for a company called Beyond 12, which is a really exciting partnership with CAC. I am a college coach, and Beyond 12 uses a virtual college coaching model. So we contact students via like email, texting, calls, FaceTime. And we serve first generation, underrepresented, low-income students predominantly, and just help them throughout college. We actually have a table outside to the left if you guys are really serious about life after CAC. It's one of the best jobs I worked, outside of CAC, obviously.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole DeTillo. I served with the Pennsylvania Corps from 2011 to 2013. After I left the Pennsylvania Corps, I went down to NC State for my graduate work. Go Wolfpack. So I did my master's in higher education and then was glutton for punishment and just kept going through for my PhD. And so I continued at NC State to get my PhD in higher education. And in my last 2 years of the PhD, once I was in dissertation phase, I actually came back to the Corps as the program director for the NC State College Advising Corps.
Awesome. So, like I said, I want you all to ask these amazing alums questions, but I've got 2, and then I will move on. But the first question is, and let me ask, and so you can get a sense of who's in the room, how many of you want to stay in education, advisors? And how many of you think that you want to be, I know this is the same question in some ways, but how many of you want to stay in nonprofit space? So we have a mix in here, so I want to make sure there's a mix up here in terms of people's experiences. But Tony, why don't you talk about not in nonprofit space, which is great. We need, back to Jose's point and some of what we're talking about, we need you all in all sorts of spaces. We can't just talk to ourselves. We have to change hearts and minds. So I need some of you in boardrooms and in places, frankly, where you can propel that space in the same way that we were propelling this space, right? So Tony, you want to talk a little about what CAC skills do you bring to your job and how did you land in that space?
Yeah, so I would say that there are really two skills that I've developed at CAC that have transitioned well into consulting. One is the one-on-one meetings I had with students are very similar to meetings I have with CEOs and executives, and I work mostly in the biotech and pharmaceutical space, so heads of R&D, it's like you have to figure out how to speak a common language, you have to figure out how to engage with people at their level, whatever level that may be. And then I think the other thing that I learned at CAC that's really transitioned well is time management. So you have a lot of different things that you're doing every day in your role, meeting one-on-one with students, trying to build rapport with faculty, scheduling events. My role in consulting is similar in that I have, I'm doing research, I'm doing financial modeling, I have to schedule a bunch of meetings with different stakeholders and try to manage all of that while also managing upwards with my bosses. So I think those are the two skills that I developed and honed at CAC that have transitioned well across all of the jobs that I've had since. And then I think that, I'm sorry, what was the other part of the question?
You actually just answered it.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So Selena, actually, what is working at a foundation? Because I think people don't understand what philanthropy might even look like. And how did you get there? And again, what skills did you gain at CAC? And we have to give a shout out. This is how the CAC family works. So Selena, at her school, she worked with Sarah, and Sarah is now CAC national staff running the Hatch program. So you shout out to Sarah for joining the CAC family, and this is how it all works. These things come together. So glad to have this family continue to expand. But you want to talk a little bit about how did you get to philanthropy, and what did CAC's skill set did you gain in that process?
So I would say the biggest skills that I learned that are still applicable. Number one, how to have hard conversations. Number two, empathy without paralysis. That was something I really struggled with early on, was having empathy, but harnessing that and not being paralyzed by the feelings that I was having. And then working with a diverse group of stakeholders. That is something that I have carried through my jobs after the core. And something that, when people ask, how is this related to the job now, is something that is really marketable to people, is that in this job that you have, you are working with people at the district level, you're working with students, you're working with national staff, and that's really useful. How I got to a foundation, so I went to grad school and I got my master's in education, and like many master's programs, they start exposing you to all these different ideas and models, and towards the end I started learning about the role of philanthropy in education and got really interested in how it has impacted the charter school movement. And I'm fascinated by philanthropy because there isn't a lot of oversight, and that's something that troubles me, but also just is a fascinating thing to think about. So I did a fellowship in philanthropy to study the role of it in democracy and how it impacts spaces like education, and realized that I needed more experience, and so I sought out a position at a foundation to learn more.
All right, Ian. So what did you learn at CAC that helps you now that you're beyond 12?
I'd say the first thing is the GRACE database. It really did help because a lot of the work I do at Beyond 12 is very database focused. We use Salesforce. I also work with like almost the exact same demographic of students, so I already have the experience. And then just generally like connecting with students and having like a passion for it and an understanding for like what they go through on a day-to-day basis, like having been in the school with them, now helping the same type of student through that college experience. Not only it's just like really enriching and like fulfilling for me, but also like really helpful because I know exactly what they were thinking before they got in there. So it was like really smooth transition. And yeah, just the people, I think, too, just like working with people who are in nonprofit, people who care. It's just more of the same at Beyond 12. Yeah.
So Nicole, I know, how many of you are thinking about going to grad school?
Yay.
Right. And how many of you are thinking about getting a PhD?
Yay.
All right. That makes my heart sing. All right. So how did CAC prepare you for graduate school? How awful was graduate school? Should they go to graduate school? I know some of them are freaking out about going to graduate school. You've survived.
Yes. So yes, you should go to graduate school if it is the right path for you. It is a real privilege. I've been very privileged to be able to go on to get my doctorate, and so I always try to remember that component. But I would say, how has CAC prepared me for graduate school? So I think one thing is in the field of education, the impact is not something you necessarily see right away, right? It is a long-term change. And I think one of the challenges of being in the advising role is that you're here for such a short period, and you don't necessarily get to see the full impact of what you do. And so part of it is having faith that that what you're doing makes a difference, because it does make a difference. And you might not see that until many years afterwards when you're connecting with your students. The component of graduate school that I found really helpful is to have a critical eye as well. So it's not enough just to have faith that you're making a difference. It's also important to make sure that you are critically analyzing what you're doing and how you could be doing it better. And so I think balancing those two, the experience that I had with the advising corps gave me that heart for service, and then graduate school gave me that critical eye, and together it means that the work that we're able to do gets better and better, right? So those two pieces, I would encourage you all, if that is something, to really be effective change makers, whether it's graduate school, law school, med school, getting a position that gives you some of that critical lens as well, is really going to be the thing that makes you a great change maker in this field of college access or education or wherever that field is that you choose to go into. So yeah, I think those two pieces. And it also helps that I was able to, because I had the experience with the College Advising Corps, to really be the person, one of the people in the room when we talk about research and when we talk about the literature, be the reminder of like, okay, who's not in this conversation? Who is missing in this conversation? And not everyone who's had that kind of service experience is able to be that voice. So that's another great reason to have more advisors in graduate school to make sure those voices are heard.
So one more question, then I want to open this up. So I'll go back to Tony and Salim for this one. What advice would you give them now? You've sat in those seats and thought about what comes next. What do you wish you knew when you were sitting in those seats?
I think for me, I would have started looking earlier than I might have started my first job search after the Corps. I know Matt, who was the advisor or the program director when I was there, and still the great program director he is today, recommends starting about 6 months before looking for opportunities. And that is kind of the advice that I would give. I think I started like maybe 3 months before. And I found something, it worked out, but I would definitely recommend starting to think about it and dip your toe into the water and looking into actual opportunities around the 6 months before your service is over.
I would say while I was a core member, I wish that I knew that it was okay not to know, and I wish that it was specific to the work that you're doing, and I wish it was okay to have shared that with my students. And that's something that I've carried with me still, is that it's okay to admit when you don't know something and to ask for help. I would echo looking in advance. I would also say do informational interviews. Reach out to people who have a career or a job that is of interest to you. It is so much easier to later reach out to them and make it not transactional, because if you reach out at the point when you need something, people feel used or, like it's advantageous. So build that relationship. And people like talking about themselves. So reach out and do informational interviews. It's really helpful.
All right, Ian, can I mix up a little bit?
Okay.
If
I
you
wasn't
could go
sure what I
back,
was gonna say.
if you could go back and do this again, is there anything you do differently?
To be real?
Yeah. That's all we do here. We're being real.
I would have tried to do the grad school program at NYU. I didn't do it because at the time I was like, man, grad school is hard and like, I don't got time and like, I'm smart enough, so I didn't want to, I didn't want to go through it. But in retrospect, it's like, that probably would have really helped me out. I don't know if I would have been in Beyond 12, so I don't know if I really want to do that. But yeah, I wish I did that. I wish I really thoroughly looked through what NYU had to offer for me in terms of grad school, because afterwards I realized there were programs that I was interested in. I was just so sold on the fact that I don't want to go that I didn't end up going. So it would have been nice to do that.
And then Nicole, you've got this interesting lens. You've been in the seats as an advisor. Now you're in the seats as a program director. What in the world does that feel like?
Oh, wow. So I was actually laughing with Bob, my former supervisor with Pennsylvania Corps, who's incredible, about this last night. There were things as an advisor that I didn't fully understand why we did it, and was like, I don't want to do that. And now being on the program staff side and seeing oh, that's why we do that. Okay. So. I mean, it's awesome. It's really been a dream job. I feel very fortunate every day to be able to come back and do this work with the Corps, because it's really what got me started on this journey with college access. I think the best part of the role now is being able to help now advisors go on to their next steps and see them start to go to grad school and get positions and become those change makers, because the experience really transforms you. It did for me, and now I get to see that among my incredible advisors. So,
All right, awesome. Let's ask a couple questions. There's 2 mics. We've got probably time for 2 or 3 questions. Please.
Hi, guys. I'm Benny Pryor. I'm with the Furman College Advising Corps. And I wanted to ask you guys, so when you start looking for jobs while you're still employed, how do you explain to these potential employers that you are still employed and ask them to wait for you to finish your service year and potentially wait for you to finish summer training as well?
If I could answer, I mean, I think it depends on the job you're applying for. A lot of jobs have times when they start hiring, and you can line that up with when CAC ends. If you're going to be in education, for example, a lot of jobs are hiring when our cycle ends, so it's a smooth transition. I think the day CAC, the day my high school graduated, a day after I had to be at Beyond 12. to like do the interview and everything. So it's like it can line up very well. And then also just being honest and communicating with the people that you're trying to be hired by, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm a really good candidate. I would love to do it, but I got this time thing, and like people appreciate that. So it could actually help.
I think explaining too that this is a time-bound service, and so many employers are familiar with AmeriCorps and service-type programs, and I think a lot of employers appreciate that you want to honor the commitment that you made to service and to your current role. And if they don't, then maybe that's a consideration of whether or not you want to work there.
I would also keep in mind that just because you're applying to a job doesn't mean you're going to get it right away. A lot of time there's a significant lag between like the application and the actual acceptance and then like the first day. So sometimes several months in many cases. So I would also just keep that in mind as well.
I would say if you're asked directly, don't omit information if they ask you a specific timeline. But I would say that if you go through the application and interview process, if you are offered the job, you have a certain amount of cachet to be able to negotiate the start, and it gives you a little bit more of an upper hand if you've already gotten an offer to negotiate that. Obviously, if the timeline's off by 6 months, that's a bigger issue, but you can negotiate once you're offered.
Thank you. That was great professional advice.
It reminds me that one of the things we want to build better for you all is to support you more in your transition, and how we need to teach you all or empower you all how to negotiate, right? You do have power. And as somebody who thinks about how to lift you up, we also have to make sure that you know that any employer who doesn't want to honor your service or doesn't want you to finish what you start, one of the most important things in life, frankly, is running through the tape, right? It's to finish what you start. It's to honor the students you're serving right now. If somebody doesn't get that, I'm not sure you want to work there. So, go.
Hey, good morning. My name is Jeremy Finazzo. I'm a second-year college advisor with the Carolina College Advising Corps. I think you've heard of us. My question is, what does your resume look like? That's it. I mean, like, obviously,
what does your resume look like?
With CAC in perspective, is CAC still on your current resume or remnants of it? How does that evolve as we go on after this program?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I have a great template I'm happy to send anybody.
I have business cards. If
yeah, no, I mean, add me on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Matt's got my email. Happy to send it out. Happy to send it out to Nicole. But CAC is definitely on my resume, and so is Data and Policy Fellowship. I think that the skills that I learned while doing that are still transferable and relevant. I also think that it's most people's first job, and I'm like, 3 years out now? And so it's still like a very relevant portion of my resume.
I never left, so. But I would say for your resume, you all have at your disposal the data that you put into Grace, and you should use that on your resume. So it's not just about telling people what you did, but showing them either quantitative numbers, either stories or specific programs that you did. Like I said, you have at your disposal data. Use that data on your resume.
I would also say, in my case, when I'm looking at my resume, when I'm describing my job position or the organization, what is the Selena factor? In your case, insert your name. Anybody can go and look at the website and get an idea of what the organization does. What is it that you did that was different, or what did you contribute individually that makes you stand out? What is your individual factor? And I would also say harness the power of signaling. Your institutions, your universities have a lot of influence. I would also say with the College Advising Corps, put the AmeriCorps affiliation. Some people might not recognize certain organizations, so, use that to your advantage too.
And a little plug, this afternoon is all about life after the core. We are doing resume workshops this afternoon, so we will be helping you out there.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Nina Galley. I'm with the Appalachian Advising Corps. They're great. So a question I had is really just if there's any advice you could share with the Wanderlust advisors in the room, like the process of maybe something you wish you knew when you were moving across states, and what that meant for you.
Well, the office of Beyond 12 is in the Bay Area, so like San Francisco, Oakland, California, and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, so I was like all the way across the country, didn't know anybody, just really, shot my shot, I don't know,
Yeah.
tried, and I feel like that goes a long way. I don't know, not to be like religious, but like the universe provides, you know, and I think like knowing where you kind of want to end up does help a lot. I think the reason I got the position at Beyond 12, was even told about it, was because I told my manager at CAC, oh yeah, like, they were like, what do you want to do next? And I was like, oh, I'm thinking of going to, I want to go to Japan at the time, Japan or like California. And they're like, oh, well, one of our partners has an office in California. Maybe you should apply, da-da-da-da-da. And now I'm here. So it's like, I feel like the, having like a vision at least of where you want to go and just putting that out into the world and seeing what people bring back to you helps a lot.
I would say if you also have time to talk to people from different areas. One of the things I did before I moved up to Boston was I called up the 3 people I knew in the entire city and just asked them what their thoughts and opinions were on Boston before I accepted the job in consulting. And so I think just having conversations with people you know in different cities can be helpful, and also knowing that no move is permanent. So you can go and try something, and if you don't love it, then you don't have to stay. So I just think being open-minded and pursuing whatever the best opportunity for you is at the time, and knowing that if it doesn't work out, it's not a permanent issue.
Thank you.
So last speed round, one-word answers here. One word for your kind of feeling about being back in the CAC space.
Welcomed.
Nostalgic.
Inspired.
That was my word. Fortunate.
So I'm making a pledge publicly right now that we will spend more time trying to figure out ways to lift you up, to get the LinkedIn stuff working, to get the Alumni Association stuff working, to get this propelling you forward stuff working, so that when you do land in Boston, you know your CAC family that might have gone to Mizzou, but now they're in Boston, and you went to TCU and you're in Boston, and now you're gonna hold hands with everybody in Boston and move forward, right? That's the beauty of this work. That's why we have a summit, is so that we can build this network, right? And so please join me in honoring and thanking our great CAC alums for coming home. All right, we've got some logistics now, right, Emily? All right.
Good morning. I have the very fun task of assisting you all in going outside for our group photo. Before I do that, I do want to plug Delisha Hodo created a CAC Advisor and Alumni LinkedIn group. So go on there and ask to join, and we'll make sure everyone gets connected. So I am going to release you by your chapter rather quickly. Please take the time right now to put on your coats and your hats and your gloves. It is very slippery outside, so please walk carefully. Don't go anywhere, just get dressed. I have national staff members in the back of the room who are here to escort you. And so I'm gonna start off with App State and Brown University with Kelsey, They are by the center doors. You'll see signs. So App State and Brown University, please go back and find Kelsey. Leave from the back. You're gonna follow Katrina. Katrina is wearing a colorful hat. Kelsey's standing in the center. She's gonna start walking back. I see Adam, so we're gonna go with the next group. Boston University, please follow Samantha. I don't see you, Sam. Oh, there's Sam. Sam is in the back corner by the Salon F exit sign. This will be done in alphabetical order. So for our programs that start at the bottom of the alphabet, you can hang on a minute. Boston University, please go find Samantha. Davidson, you are looking for Erin. Erin is in the back center by Salon E. She's jumping up and down. She's wearing a black hat. Duke, you are looking for Gabby. Gabby is also in the back waving her sign. You are welcome to leave your bags here. You do not need to bring them with you. In fact, I encourage you to not bring them with you. Okay, so that is Boston with Samantha, Davidson with Erin, Duke with Gabby. Class of 2020 with Kumera, also in the back, center door. College Point, you are looking for Toby. Also near the back, standing on a chair. Pennsylvania, you are looking for Sanji, who is standing by the Salon F door. I think you've spotted her. We're going to take a little pause to get these cores out. Furman University, you are looking for Warner. Warner standing by Salon E, standing on a chair, waving a sign. Georgia State, you are looking for Agatha, also by the Salon E exit. And Hybrid Advising, Hatch, and North Carolina, as well as Indiana University. You are looking for Sarah Simmons. I don't know where Sarah is. Oh, Sarah is also, no. Sarah's near Salon F, outside, Salon G. Over here, there's Sarah Simmons, Salon G by the AV booth. That is all hybrid advisors with Hatch in North Carolina as well as Indiana University. Kansas State, you are looking for Liz. Liz is standing in the back on a chair. She is dressed in all the layers. Michigan State, you are looking for Celia. Celia is in Salon F, exit. NYU, you are looking for Shamik. Shamik is going to the Salon E exit. NC State, you are looking for Jamie. Jamie standing on a chair by the Salon F exit. Texas A&M, you are looking for Kim. Kim, anywhere? Does anyone know where Kim is? Good, great, good, thank you. TCU, you are looking for Gina. She's jumping up and down in the back. Red hat. Trinity, you are looking for Erica Martin. You're already together. Great. We're going to take another pause while we let these programs leave. Berkeley, you are looking for Jen, all the way in the back by Salon F exit near the camera. Yes. Okay, UC Merced and Santa Barbara, you are looking for Ekaterina.